Martin Unfiltered. Fireworks at the hearing for Supreme Court nominee Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Senators Cory Booker and Kamala Harris tear into him over civil rights and racial profiling, leading Republicans to threaten to kick Booker out of the Senate. He said, "Bring it." We'll show you the video. Also, the NAACP, they've called the Kavanaugh hearings a sham. Joining us on the show, the CEO, Derek Johnson. Also today at the White House, black pastors rallied just outside the White House to condemn the various acts of the Trump administration, saying it's time for him to go. And they also say it's important for black churches to lead souls to the polls. Our cameras were there. Other media were not. That's why we do what we do. Because when you're black, you cover your own. Also in Louisiana, a Catholic school kicked out a sister for wearing braids, and they later reversed their policy. We'll talk with her parents right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Also, again, you said you wanted news from your perspective. We'll check this out. My panel will join us, and we'll talk about, guess what, Alex Jones, no longer on Twitter. They booted him and InfoWars. What does that mean? Because they also booted a black pastor. We'll talk about that, folks. It's time to bring the funk. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Today was the third and final day of the hearings for Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, and man, the fireworks were aplenty. Senator Cory Booker said he had enough of Republicans holding back various documents related to Kavanaugh. And so what he did is he said, you know what, I'm just going to release them. Now, the deal is Judge Kavanaugh's court decisions, they are public, yet some of the documents, such as emails when he worked in the administration of President George W. Bush, as well as with Special Prosecutor Ken Starr, Republicans say those should be locked away. Booker said, you know what, I'm about tired of this nonsense. Some 42,000 documents were made available to the committee on the eve before the hearing started, like literally the night before. They only had about 15 hours to even review those documents. Booker said, enough is enough. He said, I'm releasing some of those documents, such as emails from Kavanaugh dealing with racial profiling, and he made it clear, you know what, I did it. What y'all gonna do?
I knowingly violated the rules that were put forth, and I'm told that the committee confidential rules have knowing consequences. And so, sir, I come from a long line, as all of us do as Americans, and understand what that kind of civil disobedience is, and I understand the consequences. So I am right now, before your process is finished, I'm going to release the email about racial profiling. And I understand that the penalty comes with potential ousting from the Senate. And if Senator Cornyn believes that I violated Senate rules, I openly invite and accept the consequences of my team releasing that email right now. And I'm releasing it to expose that, number one, the emails that are being withheld from the public have nothing to do with national security, nothing to jeopardize the sanctity of those ideals that I hold dear. Instead, what I'm releasing this document right now to show, sir, is that we have a process here for a person, the highest office in the land, for a lifetime appointment. We're rushing through this before me and my colleagues can even read and digest the information.
Can I ask you? Can I ask you how long you're going to say the same thing 3 or 4 times?
No, sir.
How long do you want?
I'm saying I'm knowingly violating the rules.
Okay.
Senator Cornyn called me out for it.
How many times are you going to tell us,
sir? I'm saying right now that I'm releasing committee confidential documents.
Mr. Chairman.
Now, then Senator John Cornyn of Texas, he said that Booker was violating the Senate rules and that he could be kicked out of the Senate. And that's when Cory Booker said, okay, you want to try that? I'll own it. Let's go through that process. We also saw Senator Kamala Harris also tear apart Kavanaugh, forcing him to answer very specific questions. And for somebody who was very fluid, very cool under fire, he had lots of problems answering her questions. And I would say he's probably going to be kept up at night dreaming, more like a nightmare, of Senator Kamala Harris.
Judge, have you ever discussed Special Counsel Mueller or his investigation with anyone?
Well, it's in the news every day.
Have you discussed it with anyone?
With other judges, I know.
Have you discussed Mueller or his investigation with anyone at Kasowitz, Benson, and Torres, the law firm founded by Mark Kasowitz, President Trump's personal lawyer? Be sure about your answer, sir.
Well, I'm not remembering, but if you have something you want to...
Are you certain you've not had a conversation with anyone at that law firm?
Kasowitz, Benson.
Kasowitz, Benson, and Torres, which is the law firm founded by Mark Kasowitz, who is President Trump's personal lawyer. Have you had any conversation about Robert Mueller or his investigation with anyone at that firm? Yes or no?
Well, is there a person you're talking about?
I'm asking you a very direct question, yes or no?
I need to know I'm not sure I know everyone who works at that law firm.
I don't think you need to. I think you need to know who you talked with. Who'd you talk to?
I don't think I'm not remembering, but I'm happy to be refreshed, or if you want to tell me who you're thinking of who works.
Are you saying that with all that you remember, you have an impeccable memory? You've been speaking for almost 8 hours, I think more, with this committee about all sorts of things you remember. Yeah. How can you not remember whether or not you had a conversation about Robert Mueller or his investigation with anyone at that law firm? This investigation has only been going on for so long, sir. So
right, I'm not sure. I'm just trying to think. Do I know anyone who works at that firm? I might know.
Have you had? That's not my question. My question is, have you had a conversation with anyone at that firm about that investigation? It's a really specific question.
I would like to know the person you're thinking of, because what if there's...
I think you're thinking of someone and you don't want to tell us. Who did you have a conversation with?
I'm not going to...
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to raise an objection here. This town is full of law firms. Law firms are full of people.
First of all, I'd like you to pause the clock. Thank you.
The clock is paused.
Thank you.
Pause the clock. Let me raise my objection.
Recognized.
This town is full of law firms. Law firms are full of people. Law firms have a lot of names. There are a lot of people who work at a lot of law firms.
Responsibility to all Americans. Vote no. Be a hero. Vote no. You have a responsibility to all Americans. Be a hero and vote no.
And
be a hero and vote no. Be a hero and vote no. You have a responsibility to all Americans. Be a hero and vote no. Be a hero.
Sir, please answer the question.
I don't know everyone who works at that law firm, Senator.
And have you had any discussion with anyone ever about Bob Mueller and or his investigation?
So you said Bob Mueller, have I ever had a discussion about Bob Mueller? I used to work in the administration with Bob Mueller.
What about his investigation? Have you had a conversation with anyone about his investigation?
I'm sure I've talked to fellow judges.
Anyone aside from fellow judges?
About Bob Mueller?
About his investigation, sir. I'll ask again. I asked the question just a minute ago. I'm surprised you forgot. Have you had this conversation with anyone about the investigation that Bob Mueller is conducting regarding Russia interference with our election or any other matter?
The fact that it's ongoing, it's a topic in the news every day. I talked to fellow judges about it. It's in our, it's in the courthouse in the District of Columbia. So I guess
And I'll ask
The answer
you
to that is yes. So the answer is yes.
Okay, and did you talk with anyone at Kasowitz, Benson, and Torres?
You asked me that. I need to know who works there.
I think you can answer the question without me giving you a list of all employees of that law firm.
Well, actually, I can't.
Why not?
Because I don't know who works there.
So that's the only way you would know who you spoke with? I want to understand your response to my question, because it's a very direct one. Did you speak with anyone at that law firm about the Mueller investigation? It's a very direct question.
Right. I'd be surprised, but I don't know anyone. I don't know if I don't know everyone who works at that law firm. So I just want to be careful, because your question was and or. So I want to be very literal.
That's fine. I'll ask a more direct question if that's helpful. Speak with anyone at that law firm about Bob Mueller's investigation?
I'm not remembering anything like that, but I want to know a roster of people, and I want to know more.
So you're not denying that you spoke with
Well,
anyone?
I said I don't remember anything like that.
Okay. I'll move on. Okay. Clearly you're not going to answer the question.
That's what we call doing the butt dance. I can't answer a question. The Howard University graduate was not done. Check this out when she asked him about racial spoils system.
Tell me what the term racial spoils system means to you.
Senator, first of all, the Supreme Court affirmed the position that I had articulated in the amicus brief 7-2 in Rice versus Cayetano, an opinion written by Justice Kennedy. Second of all, the state voting restriction at issue in Hawaii was a state office, not for the Native Hawaiian.
Judge, that's not what I asked you.
But
if you can define the term as you used it, what does it mean to you?
But you raise the case, and the state voting restriction in that case denied Hawaiians, residents of Hawaii, the ability to vote on the basis of their race. So if you were Latino or African American, you could not vote in the election.
And I heard your response to that earlier, and I appreciate the point that you made then. My question is, you used this term twice, and I'm asking, what does the term mean to you?
I'm not sure what I was referring to then, to be entirely frank.
And more butt dancing. This is him answering the question, dealing with Charlottesville. All right, so we have an issue with that video. I'm going to play that in just a second. I mean, that was pretty wild. Again, this is somebody, of course, who's supposed to be head to the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, deciding all the major cases. And wasn't it interesting when it came to issues of race, he somehow could not answer any of those questions. The NAACP, they've been calling these hearings a sham. Joining us right now is Derek Johnson. He is the CEO of the NAACP. Derek, glad to have you at Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations.
Appreciate it, Doc. You've sat in these hearing rooms. You've seen him talk about precedent when it comes to Roe v. Wade, those decisions. But clearly, late yesterday and today, when he was challenged on issues of race, it's amazing how jittery he got and being unable to answer those questions.
You know, unfortunate, this is the first time in history we've seen this type of hearing. The majority in the Senate, they're refusing to release documents. Those documents are key to understand how he would rule on cases. The last thing we need is an activist Supreme Court justice. The NAACP 12 years ago, we opposed his nomination to the D.C. Circuit Court. We understood then what we know now, that his judicial temperament is not in the best interest of this nation and definitely not African Americans.
And again, when he couldn't even answer just very basic questions, and I don't recall what I was talking about when I wrote that, and then being jammed up on those issues. I mean, at the end of the day, let's just be honest, the Federalist Society, a far-right organization, the judges who they like are not likely to rule when it comes to issues involving race because they are upholding far different principles that really guided us for quite some time.
So the response is that he couldn't. The real answer is he wouldn't answer the questions. He have answers to those questions, but they wouldn't be consistent with a confirmation hearing in which he will actually be confirmed. That's why the Republicans are holding back the documents. So there's enough in those documents, I believe, to prove that he holds beliefs and he's made statements that's anti what we think a Supreme Court justice should be. I believe, personally, there's information in the documents the Republicans refuse to release that's both racist in terms of statements. I believe that his positions on voting rights, on education, on many of the civil rights issues that we've won over the last 65 years will all be of question. We've seen federal appointments by this administration who wouldn't support Brown versus Board of Education. I think Kavanaugh's record is much more egregious than that.
Look, he's expected to get some 53, 54 votes. And if that's the case, you're going to have a fifth person on the Supreme Court. First of all, do you believe the Democrats have been aggressive enough in challenging Kavanaugh and challenging Republicans when it comes to this nomination?
I think they've become aggressive, but they only got aggressive at the opening of the hearing. They should have been aggressive all along. We are looking at unindicted co-conspirator of a foreign nation interfering with our election. That person happened to be occupying the White House. Kavanaugh wasn't even on the list until after he made statements that he felt that the president should be above the law. That's when he got on the list. That's how he got nominated. This hearing should not be taking place. Had the Democrats been more aggressive on the front end, we may not be looking at this issue. NAACP, we have no permanent friends. We have no permanent enemies. We have a permanent interest. And our interest is founded in the fact that what's in the best interest of African Americans oftentimes is found in one of the three branches of government. And with the Supreme Court, that's a lifetime appointment. So we've sent out the message, if any member of the U.S. Senate, Republican or Democrat, betray us on this, it is our job to tell black folks don't vote for them.
All right. Derek Johnson, NAACP, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
As I said, folks, when it came to the issue of Charlottesville, we know that was a very contentious issue where, of course, Heather Heyer, she died as a result of being hit by a white supremacist. And so at the hearing, the question came up as it relates to Charlottesville, and here's what Kavanaugh, well, I won't say he had to say, what he didn't say.
When you and I met, we talked about race relations in this country, and there's been a lot of talk among my colleagues with you about the subject. And when you and I met, I brought up the incident in Charlottesville, where, as you know, there was a rally by white supremacists that left a young woman dead. You will recall that the president who nominated you described the incident by saying, quote, "I think there is blame on both sides." So I think this will be a simple question for you. Do you, sir, believe there was blame on both sides?
Senator, we did talk, and I enjoyed our meeting, and to talk about the history of this country, and we talked about that at some length and talked about discrimination. I appreciated your opening statement yesterday where you talked about your experience. One of the principles I've articulated throughout this hearing is the independence of the judiciary.
And sir, I'd appreciate if you'd answer the question.
I am, Senator. So one of the principles I've talked about throughout this hearing is the independence of the judiciary. And one of the things judges do, following the lead of the Chief Justice and what all the judges do, is not stay out of current events, stay out of commenting on current events, because it risks confusion about what our role is. We are judges who decide cases and controversy. We're not pundits, so we don't comment on current events. We stay out of political controversy.
Judge, with all due respect, I only have limited time.
But
are you saying that it's too difficult a question, or it's a question you can't answer, which is whether you agree with the statement that there was blame on both sides? We can move on, but are you saying you cannot answer that pretty simple question?
I'm saying that the principle of the independence of the judiciary means that I can't insert myself into politics in either of two ways, commenting on political events or, in my view, commenting on things said by politicians, a governor, a senator, a congressperson, a president. I'm not here to assess comments made in the political arena, because the risk is I'll be drawn into the political arena, and the justices and judges of the United States.
And I appreciate your point. But there was such a robust conversation that happened, especially with my colleagues on the other side and you, about race. So on the subject of race, I raised this question, but we can move on.
All right, folks, let's go to our panel. Far right, Eugene Craig Organization, Tiffany Cross. She is the manager and curator of The Beat, and Rashad Robinson, of course, executive director of colorofchange.org. So lots of butt dancing there by Kavanaugh. Yeah. When it came to race, he wasn't a smooth talker as he was the first 2 days.
Yeah. And I think that was a really easy answer he could have given. I mean, that wasn't a political answer. A simple answer is, no, I do not support Nazis as a member of the judiciary. Very simple.
It's not hard.
Exactly. And this is somebody who can remember where he put a semicolon and not a period. He can remember from 20 years ago briefings that he weighed in on or wrote. And I find it pretty hypocritical that he conveniently manages to forget anytime there's some sort of discomfort in a senator's question. And I applaud Kamala Harris. I mean, this is why it's so important to have her and Cory Booker, new members of the judiciary, for raising these relevant issues, because they weren't there before. And them coupled with Mazie Hirono of Hawaii, they're the only people of color on the left who are pressing these issues. So kudos to them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I also think that it's not convenient. Because his memory is so great, we have to assume that he actually knows that he has a history that could be drawn up at some point. Records and papers during the Bush years that can be pulled up when needed. A whole set of things throughout his time that will contradict him actually saying that taking firm stances around race, because that's going to be able to be impeached. And now with papers being put out because of the stances that Cory Booker and others are taking now on the committee, I think his stance of not answering these questions is quite strategic.
Yeah, I think it's a lot to unpack here. Now, if we jump back to Cory Booker earlier, I think Cory took the stance that he took because Grassley opened up this hearing by breaking Senate rules, by breaking committee rules. The motion to go into executive session is a privileged motion, should have been voted on right then and there. Motion to adjourn, anybody's familiar Robert Rules of Order, is a privileged motion that should have been voted on right then and there. So the second when Cory said, listen, bring it, you know, he knows that, well, first, their votes aren't there to remove from the Senate. Secondly, you know, that they would not take the action. But when it comes to Kavanaugh's actual nomination, it's pretty hard for him to take a stance on race when, you know, the person that made the appointment is, you know, 45. Mm-hmm.
But I think, too, though, to the point of race, I think this is very strategic on the Democrats' part because they are trying to find a chink in the armor on the Republican side. They don't have a lot of room for somebody to break the ranks. And so when you talk about his ruling, what Kamala Harris was asking about around the issue of racial spoils, I mean, that was around Native Hawaiians, which, of course, we know Lisa Murkowski, senator from Alaska, has a lot of Alaskan natives in her area. So if they can highlight, look, this guy that you're ready to vote for does have some racial objections that you should find objectionable. I have learned to not be Charlie Brown kicking the football again, because every time we think, oh, Susan Collins is going to save us, Lisa Murkowski is going to save us, and every single time they don't. So I don't want to get my hopes up.
That ain't going to happen.
And what I've got to say is what actually does make me finally happy is that, you know, to this Charlie Brown, Lucy sort of analogy, I'm finally glad that the Democrats have a backbone. That, you know, I have sat in Senator Schumer's office during the Gorsuch nomination, him walking through, you know, that the Senate Republicans would never give up the filibuster, that there's a number of Republicans that believe in sort of the order, even after what happened to Merrick Garland, after we already knew that. And so to see, because, you know, here's the thing about Mitch McConnell. I don't agree with a thing that he does. He is on the other side. But what I will say is that I would rather have someone like Mitch McConnell on our side that was willing to actually understand the game that's being played.
Games to win.
And understand who they are fighting for. And a Cory Booker, whether he's running for president or he wants to be majority leader, actually made a real statement and a real case.
Games to win, which and again, black people, y'all can still be mad at me all y'all want to, but I'm sorry. President Obama was not playing a game to win when he nominated Merrick Garland. If he was playing a game to win, he would nominate a black woman. And
maybe Anita Hill.
And he would have had this picture.
Crazy.
Wait, he didn't even need to go to Anita Hill. God gave him this manna from heaven, this gift to have the sister-in-law of House Speaker Paul Ryan, a judge who he had previously nominated to the federal bench. And again, if you play to win, and this is the thing I keep saying, look, Republicans don't give a damn about the rules. They don't give a damn about, how this is going to look. All they care about is packing the federal judiciary with right-wing judges. They do not care. They have passed a number of folks. They have passed more district court judges in the last 18 months than what Obama did in 4 years. They don't care. Democrats have better decide, do you want to win or do you want to make nice? Because it's real simple. Because I'm telling you right now, if the Democrats get control of the Senate, if this flips in November, I'm going to tell you how Roland would do. I'll be like, you know we ain't approving a judge
It'd be back to the Harry
for the
Reid
next...
days. It'd be Harry Reid days.
No.
It'd be back to the Harry Reid
I'm going to be
days.
harder than Harry Reid.
No, yeah.
And wait a minute. And see, I ain't even going to front. I'm going to say, look at here. This is why we ain't approving any judges. Because you pull that BS with Obama, and I ain't passing nobody. And when they out there yelling, I'm like, I don't care if y'all... I would literally say, not a single judge will get a hearing for the next 2 years. And what y'all gonna say?
And for Democrats and for folks on the left, what's happening in these primaries around the country, where folks on the left, where a younger crop, a crop of more young people, of women, are taking power, this is a real sign for the future, because those are the folks that will hold the line. Those are the folks for the future. Unfortunately, we have too many people inside of the Senate that are invested in the old rules because they have nothing to lose.
I'm all about winning.
Yes.
Folks, earlier today, outside of the White House, the AME Church held a massive rally there, calling on it's time for Donald Trump to go. Bishop Reginald Jackson, president of the Bishops' Council of the AME Church, along with other prominent pastors, organized the event called to Conscience Day of Action. Their purpose, again, holding this administration accountable. Of course, with the other members of the media there, black press, other folks know, which is also why we have this show. We talked to some pastors about that event.
How critical is it for the clergy, for the black church to exert its influence when it comes to President Trump, but also this midterm election?
The largest independent organization black people have is the black church. It's now in motion. You see it evidenced in Ben Jealous's campaign in Maryland. You saw it happen with Ariana in Massachusetts. In Georgia, Bishop Jackson is the Bishop of Georgia. It's happening with Gillum in Florida or McEsper, Mississippi. The black church comes alive, big things come our way. And I'm excited to see bishops calling this meeting because it means November 6th is a date with destiny. November 6th is the big date.
Everybody keeps talking about vote in November, but you have registration deadlines that are coming up in October. One of the things that I keep saying is you better focus on mobilizing, organizing folks to register. After they register, then vote.
All high school seniors who are 18 or will be 18 can vote now. Matter of fact, the 4 million who graduated in May can vote now. All students on campus should vote before they attend school. If you're in Morehouse or Spelman, you're from New York, vote where you attend school, vote residency. Last time, there were 4 million blacks in the South still unregistered, 2.5 million who were registered who did not vote, 8 million altogether unregistered. We have too much power to throw it away. If we use our power in coalition, we're going to make something happen. You'll see evidence of it. We didn't have this kind of activity even pre-campaign in 16. Something's happening there that's a good thing.
You got a hearing going on right now with Brett Kavanaugh. He was pressed by Senators Cory Booker and Kamala Harris on a variety of issues, including civil rights, and he pretty much danced around those questions. This is a nominee that the NAACP and others say will be absolutely against the best interests of black folks.
He represents bad news for women and workers and people of color. Trump is in a bad way, and it's not just racism, it's racism. His behavior toward John McCain was meanness. Toward immigrants is irresponsible. This is a case of white nationalism gone wild, and we have our moral obligation. This is an ideology that's un-American. We must fight until he is sent out of this place prematurely.
Bishop, why did you decide to call this event here in September in Lafayette Park, right in front of the White House?
Well, historically, the black church has been the conscience of the nation. With all this going on, it was time again for the black church to call the nation to conscience. We've heard nothing except from what they call the evangelical Christians, who seemingly contradict what they say they believe.
Would I say white conservative evangelical Christians? Because there are black evangelical Christians.
Yeah. And anyway, I think somebody had to speak truth to power. And we do not need to be professional prophets telling the king what he wants to hear. We need to tell him what he needs to hear.
Jamal, I made that point because the reality is white conservative evangelicals have co-opted that name. You can be black and be evangelical, but not have the same belief system as they do.
I would agree with you until I saw that circle of preachers at the table who are under that banner, that it is, in fact, black faces with a white conviction. And I think what was important here is that all different reformations came, not just AME, but AME Zion, Kojic, Baptist, to say what it is that we are conscientious Christians. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, you have to operate with some level of conscience.
You also have these constant attacks. You see what's happening in North Carolina, where they targeted early voting. You see them wanting to outlaw voting on Sundays. I mean, these are direct attempts to target black folks.
Well, that's why we call it conscience, because the fact of the matter is we know and they know it's not right, but if you don't say anything about it, they'll continue to do it. But we're in a war, and we've got to fight this fight, and we're going to fight every attempt to suppress our vote like we did in Rockland County, Georgia. We're going to do it in North Carolina and wherever else they try to do it.
You talked about the pastors who met with President Trump over criminal justice reform. I wrote a piece where I said he should be meeting with black preachers, he should be meeting with black press and others, but the issue is what is said to him when they're at the table in the meeting.
Yes, the people who are at the table shouldn't be honored to be there, but understand they have a responsibility. Our issue wasn't about them meeting, but as you said, what did you say at the meeting? Nobody at the table has ever been involved in prison reform work. None of them have prison ministries at their church, and none of them raised the salient questions germane to prison pipeline in our community and how we turn it around.
Bishop, you're from Georgia. We just saw, of course, the attempt to close 7 out of 9 early voting locations in a county with 61% black. You have a Secretary of State who's running for governor on the Republican side who just recently said, look, we better look at the minority vote. And he was not saying, I want to compete for it. Do you believe you're going to see more attempts in Georgia, in Florida with Andrew Gillum, and other places where they are going to directly, like a laser, target African Americans to keep us from voting?
Oh, unfortunately, I think it's only the beginning. You're going to see more in Georgia. You're going to see more in Florida. Wherever you have black candidates for major positions, you're going to see it. And again, that's why I want our people to understand this is a fight. We cannot just sit around and complain about it. We've got to speak out, and we've got to fight against it. And we want them to know the war is on.
What is the message specifically for somebody who says, look, I don't really see anything happening. Why should I even bother going to the polls?
Well, when you look at the first time since Reconstruction, you've got 3 blacks who are poised to be governors in Georgia, in Florida, and in Maryland. When you see the very first black woman who is potentially going to be a congresswoman from Massachusetts, that's seeing something. So what we're organizing to do today is to go from the pew to the polls. This midterm election can shift everything, and we don't want an audience, we want an army.
Same thing. Your message to those folks who say my vote really doesn't make that big of a difference.
Well, I want to ask them, first of all, do you have any pre-existing conditions, because they want to take that away? I want to ask them, are you trying to go to school because they're trying to block your opportunity? We have to look at them and say, these issues affect you. So if they don't matter to you, then no need to argue with a fool. My grandmama said, argue with a fool long enough to be 2 fools arguing.
All right, folks, so we come back. Roland Martin Unfiltered. What the hell is a cop doing tasing an 11-year-old kid in Cincinnati? We'll explain.
Hey everybody, this is Sherry Shepherd. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, and while he's doing Unfiltered, I'm practicing the wobble. Yes, I am. Because Roland Martin's the one, he will do it backwards, he will do it on the side. He messes everybody up when he gets into the wobble, because he doesn't know how to do it, so he does it backwards. And it messes me up every single time. So I'm working on it. I got it. You got Roland Martin.
Hi, my name is Latoya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mac Wiles, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Destiny, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What up, Alana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
No, Sherry, by doing the wobble backwards means I know actually how to do it. You don't, but I do. All right, folks. It's an unbelievable story out of Cincinnati where this officer, Kevin Brown, used a stun gun on an 11-year-old child who was caught shoplifting. Now, the craziest thing is the child was running away, and in this video, you will literally hear this idiot talking to her. Now, of course, the police chief in Cincinnati, he said it was a violation of department policy and unnecessary. Why does he still have a job? Check this out.
Only way we can get him out, okay? Just relax for a minute. Just relax your body. Totally relax, okay? And breathe.
Oh
Just
my
relax.
God.
Relax, baby. Relax. It'll be over before you know it. Okay? Okay, that's right. Just relax. Just relax. Relax. Then I gotta listen to all these idiots out here in the parking lot tell me how I was wrong for tasing you. You broke the law. And you fled as I tried to apprehend you. Y'all took this too? You know what, sweetheart? This is why there aren't any grocery stores in the black community, because of all this going on.
Dude, really? Let's go back to our panel.
You know,
11 years old, taser.
I mean, this is emblematic of why we need the type of real hardcore reform of our criminal justice system, but also policing. When I testified in front of the President Obama's National Committee on 21st Century Policing, they did three different panels in different cities, and I actually testified in Cincinnati, and they chose Cincinnati because Cincinnati at the time, and still to this day, is under a consent decree with the Department of Justice that's supposed to be overseeing its Justice Department. Now that overseeing its policing, now that Jeff Sessions is overseeing the Justice Department, we recognize that we're not going to have the same type of oversight. The fact that the police chief can say that it violated policy, yet nothing has really been done, sends a real powerful message about what police can continue to get away with, the lack of accountability, and how little black communities have in terms of power over the folks that actually police their community. How even children are seen as enemy combatants in their own community. And the way that police officer talked to that young girl is absolutely disgusting. We should be ashamed. But more importantly, this is not about one bad apple. This is about a structural problem and a structural system. Until we get our hands around it and change it, people get unelected, they get kicked out of office, people get fired, nothing will change.
Yeah, I think the fact that there was no consequence here is a thing that you find secondly disturbing. The most disturbing thing is obviously that this 11-year-old girl was tased and then spoken to. And you have so many white children who are, able to commit infractions, and they live to tell about it without being tased or murdered.
Like that.
Right, exactly. And I think the conversation sometimes gets hairy when the aggressor, being the police officer, is a person of color. I think, again, this is very consistent with what we've seen throughout history. A system that oppresses always find people who look like you to help with their oppression. And I think that's what we've seen here. And it's really sad and it's unfortunate that this police officer has allowed himself to be co-opted by a system of oppression, and children are at the sacrifice of it, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely saddening. I think we're at a point where there needs to be hard consequences to bad policing. Whether it be, if a city's going to settle a police brutality case, that money shouldn't come from taxpayers. That money should come from police unions' budget, police unions' pension funds. If an officer is going to break protocol, it should be. I mean, we're at a point now where if you're going to attack children, breaking protocol should be a fireable offense. Any other employment, you break protocol, you're gone. You're canned because you're a liability to the company, you're a liability to the firm, and that should be the same with police departments.
All right, folks. Speaking of how our kids are impacted, this elementary school, Christ the King Elementary School in Tarrytown, Louisiana, where they made a decision that this young girl who came to school in braids, she somehow couldn't come to school because her hair violated the school's policy. Now, of course, they really couldn't establish where that was even written. They have since rescinded that policy, but it still has had a tremendous impact on this young girl. First of all, two students, Faith Kennedy and Tyrell Davis, both of them were kicked out of school. Joining us right now, first of all, so let's play the video of that. You will see, so this is actually what happened on the day they actually showed up for school. And you will see what their hair looks like, not really a big deal. And this is the girl's hair. This is her hair. Tyrell had braids.
What's wrong with her hair? Nothing wrong with her hair. Her hair is fine. Black. Come on. She has like several hairs. Yeah. I understand. I'll break whatever.
That hair somehow violated his school policy. Joining us right now is Faith's mother, Montreal Affinity, also Tyrell's mother, Tonyanita Parquette, and their attorney, James Williams. First of all, glad to have both of you here. To both of the mothers, I mean, how ridiculous is this for them to say that this violated the school policy? There was nothing wrong with their hair. Did you ever get any kind of notice where even pictures saying this is okay, this is good hair, this is bad hair?
No, absolutely not. Faith and I went to a meet and greet the day before school started, and we went to meet her teachers and the faculty, and the school staff was there, and she had her hair done, how she was going to wear it to school, and no administrator, nobody said anything to us. The next day at school, they sent her home with a note saying she could not return because her hair did not meet the new policy that was implemented over the summer about her braids. And she had been at the school 2 years wearing her braids. Her 5th grade ID picture is in cornrows that she wore the whole 5th grade school year.
And so, again, you have a child who's standing there crying, and she's trying to learn. And did you look at the other kids, other white kids in the school, and go, well, what's wrong with that hair or that hair? I mean, is this, in essence, a white standard of what they consider to be beauty when it comes to schools?
Yes, that's what I was trying to understand from the administrators, because Faith told me on her very first day, the teacher asked her, is that your real hair? Do you have fake hair in your hair? And in front of all her peers, she was, humiliated and devastated. And she was, she came home very upset and crying to me. And I could not understand, why would they implement a policy over the summer, not talk to the African-American parents there to be proactive, to understand, what it is for us to do a protective style on our children's hair. Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Well, the same thing as Faith. She was there 2 years prior, and all the other kids get to wear their hair how they want. And she didn't have braids, but she had her hair just extended. It was just like shoulder length, and she just looked like the other kids. She didn't have any colors in her hair or, nothing that I would feel as a parent out of place.
James, I want to go to you. First of all, is there any legal recourse against the school? Have they changed the policy? Did they apologize to the parents and to the children as well? What's next legally?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. And first of all, kudos to these families for standing up for what's right. Because of the fight they fought, we've already won a significant legal victory. We filed a lawsuit on behalf of these two families, and as a result, we had a judge in New Orleans issue a temporary restraining order preventing the school from enforcing this policy. You said earlier that the policy was rescinded. It was only rescinded after we got a temporary restraining order in court that prevented them from enforcing it. So we've already won a very significant legal battle with the judge striking down this policy through the temporary restraining order and ultimately pulled it. The next phase of this is to make sure that this doesn't happen to any other children. As Faith's mom and Tariel's mom said, there is absolutely nothing wrong with these hairstyles other than being a value judgment on black culture, and that's unacceptable. My mother has braids, my daughters have braids, my wife has braids. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's culturally appropriate, and I just applaud the courage of these families to keep fighting. We've already gotten this policy stricken down, and we're not going to stop until this doesn't happen to any other.
All right, then. Well, I certainly appreciate all of you joining us. Thank you so very much, and certainly give our regards to your children as well. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
All right, then. Real quick to our panel here. I mean, this is the kind of nonsense that we see consistently, and this is where black kids are being targeted. Here you have kids trying to go to school, trying to learn, and this was a Christian school using these arbitrary rules where that's okay and this hair is not.
Yeah, so I'll take this one, fellas, if you don't mind. As a black woman with hair, I mean, our entire lives, we are taught that white is right. From imagery that we see on television. And Roland,
black men, too?
I completely. And Roland, I was going to say, you know, you and I both worked in TV a long time. There are people who always say you can't wear your hair this way if you want to be on air, which none of the, I mean, we have to start changing the rules. And I think this is, of course, obviously an attack on our culture, but the disheartening part, this happened to be perpetuated by white people. But the thing is, it has penetrated our community, and we are the hardest on each other. You remember when Gabby Douglas won the Olympics, and everybody, this huge accomplishment, all we could talk about was her hair. You remember when Will and Jada let Willow cut her hair off. All we could talk about was her hair because it is our crown and glory.
But here's the piece, though. What happened with when Gabby won, it was a black folks who also talking about hair.
That's my point.
And the problem, and that's one of the, but see, here's where I think that where that's also a deal, where I think you have some of us who not only buy into somebody else's notion, but it's also the respectability game in terms of, oh my goodness, they're seeing us. First of all, she's competing.
Yeah, okay? Exactly.
The last thing you worried about is how your hair looks.
Yeah.
You're trying to win a gold medal.
Exactly.
You're not trying to have your stuff perfect. Yeah. And that's sort of, again, where we have to break that chain of white supremacy that is so deeply embedded in our DNA, where even when we talk about when we go on television in terms of, okay, well, no, I can't wear that because that's too ethnic. Or, you know, how that looks. I mean, we literally have been trained and conditioned that white standards, white values, that's what's acceptable. Don't you dare bring any ethnicity into this.
And you know, we've been part of it. The larger system and culture has been part of it. I really commend these parents for being unapologetic and standing up and pushing back, getting things on video, being unafraid to push back. But the policing of black people from cradle to grave, of institutions trying to not just you know, the written rules of policy, but the unwritten rules of culture, these decisions to punish these children in school for showing up, you know, as they are. You know, these are the reasons why it's important that we have shows like yours, because otherwise we don't get these stories that sort of penetrate. But for other parents around the country, we know that this is not just happening at that Louisiana school.
Right.
We get these stories all the time. We get the stories of, you know, young black Muslim girls being told they can't wear their hijabs and play sports. And we've had to run campaigns and organize and push back. We've had to organize and mobilize our base around issues around braids multiple times in many schools around this country. And we will continue to see this over and over until we have a collective community standard that we will not accept this, and there will be accountability when it happens.
You know, Eugene, I think one of the things that that was happening, first of all, in 25 years from now, America will be majority people of color.
Yep.
And so what is happening right before our very eyes, again, the standards and the values are changing.
Yeah, you're right.
For the entire history of America, it's been whatever white folks wanted, white folks got. Now, white folks in America are having to now deal with, it's not just you, boo. That you're going to have to now accept the fact that African Americans, Latinos, Asians, Native Americans, different cultures, that your view, the American way, your view is not going to be the dominant view. You got to make some space. And what's really happening here, white folks are uncomfortable no longer being completely in control.
You're 100% correct. I actually went to a small private 100% black-owned, operated private Christian school growing up. So I do have some experience when it comes to moderate hairstyles. But those are for mostly the men rather than the young ladies. Anyone that's have clean cuts rather than dreads or braids or anything. But the young ladies are pretty free to do what they want, because, hey, it's black culture. But, Roland, you're 100% correct. I mean, if I could reference the situation going on in Missouri, I believe, where, about 100, 150 black folk were denied jobs because their names were too, quote-unquote, ethnic or too ghetto.
Same thing.
I mean, it's the exact same thing. It's a clapback. And you say all the time that, black success, followed by white rage.
Absolutely, folks. When we come back on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Colin Kaepernick's still ticking these folks off. Now, but here's the deal. Another company has now come forward and said, we are with the players who are protesting. I'll tell you who that company is when we come back on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I'm coming out 100% real. I ain't compromising anything. Rapper Tupac Shakur.
All right, folks, Alabama A&M University, go ahead and pull it up, as our HBCU Giving Day University. We want you to support them. The purpose of this, of course, is for us to increase our funding of HBCUs. Far too many folks who are graduating from HBCUs are not giving back. Leave the graphic up, please. So the HBCU Giving Day School is Alabama A&M. Their website, please pull it up so we can show folks where to give, is AAMU.edu. That's Alabama A&M University, www.AAMU.edu. That's our HBCU Giving Day School. All right, folks, Ford Motor Company, they have said that we agree and we support the NFL players who are protesting. Of course, Nike has stirred up all kind of conversation with when they dropped their Colin Kaepernick photo and ad of him supporting, first of all, the face of their Just Do It campaign, the 30th anniversary. Well, tonight's the first NFL game. Now, y'all know I ain't watching because I'm sitting there boycotting. But Nike will be running that commercial during the NFL game. So I want to go to our panel here. Rashad, you've been very much working with Eric Reed and these other players on this issue. And for Nike to drop this ad, then for Ford to come out making that statement, okay, and I think what you're seeing is you're seeing companies say, all y'all white folks who mad, y'all ain't necessarily buying cars for the rest of eternity. Mm-hmm. We better roll with the folk who going to be buying cars and buying shoes and the things they care about.
Yeah, I mean, Ford and Nike are among some of the most savvy corporate brands in the world. They understand their brands. They spend a lot of money to market. Nike, in particular, has just been incredible, and they have such a powerful brand. So when people were like, this is a bad decision by Nike, I was like, Nike has, figured this out. They gamed this all the way out. And even the rollout with at the U.S. Open with Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed showing up, and then Serena Williams dropping the line in support of him, and then the ad coming out, and Serena's in the ad. Serena's playing tonight at the same time as the NFL game.
Right.
I'm wondering if the ad will play then as well. Nike has done, and I'm not here to tell anyone to buy Nike. Nike has all sorts of problems. I'm saying that from a business perspective, they made a really calculated business decision. But at the end of the day, 20, 30, 40 years from now, we will be talking about the heroes that Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed are, the sacrifices that they have made, the conversations that they have stood up to make. And then we will, we also talk about the modern day Bill Connors. We will be talking about these billionaire owners who have hoarded their money, gained huge tax breaks, oftentimes in very black cities, to build stadiums and all sorts of other things, have not hired black folks at the level that they should in very black cities, and we will tell the story about them to their children and to their grandchildren. But I am really happy that at the end of the day that folks like Colin Kaepernick and hopefully Eric Reed as well are going to get the type of recognition, the type of support and visibility that they deserve.
And for the folks, Tiffany, in this generation, they need to understand John Carlos and Tommy Smith caught hell for years after what they did in Mexico City in 1968. Cost them marriages as a result. And so I think people don't really understand. So a lot of these people talk about, oh, it hasn't cost them anything. Eric Reed last year had his golf tournament and sponsors pulled out, and he then put the money up himself.
And it was for sickle cell.
Right.
Like it wasn't like his personal, it was like a thing that his father put together for sickle cell in Louisiana,
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I echo everything you said, and I would just say for the companies, if it doesn't make dollars, then it don't make sense. So these companies definitely thought it through. But I like the social justice message it sends, and I think this is another example where we can highlight the hypocrisy of the right. So now you have all these idiots burning their Nike gear, and it's like, why not give it to some of these veterans you care so much about? But you'd rather look like an ass on TV and burn these things. Right. That is my point. You don't care about these veterans. You support a president who has done everything possible to disrespect this military.
Right.
He disrespected an American hero. He's ended policies that help veterans. He killed an initiative that stops people from doing predatory lending among veterans.
Yep.
So stop BSing us. Like, don't pee in our face and tell us it's raining. We see what you're doing. This is all about race. And it's really about black people feeling like y'all got out of line. We, the owners, going to tell y'all what to do. And Colin Kaepernick, Nike, and Ford are all giving a big middle finger to the NFL. And since we on the digital, I would do it, but I won't disrespect the set like that. But I'm right there along with them.
It's called Unfiltered. Go ahead. Eugene, final word on this. Final word on this topic.
The big thing is this. I think this is a major turning point. Up until this point, it's pretty much just, at least look to the world to be Colin Kaepernick plus the black community. Now, when you bring corporate backing and the power of corporate backing, power of a Dow Jones listed company, it's a major deal. I mean, you have folk from major, John Brennan. Is out supporting Colin Kaepernick now. Former General Wesley Clark is now coming out saying, hey, Colin Kaepernick's doing a patriotic thing. And so, I see it as a turning point.
And again, that's why I talk about values. The reality is white folks in America don't understand our history with the flag and our history with patriotism. Again, they've always determined what the rules were and the rules of engagement when it came to showing patriotism.
Right.
And so I think, again, I keep telling folks, this is not about Donald Trump in 2020. This is about literally what is going to be happening over the next 25, 30, and 40 years. We've had a white standard in America. And look, there are some conscious white folks out there who have been allies who are wonderful. But just overall, the standard of what it means to be an American, defining what that is, has been defined through a white prism. And now all of a sudden, it's uncomfortable for them having to accept the reality that this is not going to be a different standard. And that's why they want to go back to how things used to be. And this whole notion of make America great again. They want to go back to the 1850s and the 1950s. And that ain't going to happen. Just letting y'all know. All right, folks, so here's the deal. This is, of course, our third show, Roland Martin Unfiltered. We launched this digital show because I firmly believe that we needed to have our own voice daily, not drop in some 5 or 6 minute clips, but really being able to have engaging conversation, engaging dialogue, having guests come on. And so that's why we did this. In fact, when TV One announced they had canceled my new show, News One Now, Color Change actually didn't launch a petition drive. What they did, they said, no, what streaming services would you love to see Roland Martin do a show on? And there's some that we've actually talked to as well. And others out there like Facebook, they're throwing millions of dollars at a number of other companies and sites. No black folks in that. I've been talking to them saying, look, fund this because I can guarantee you we're doing something that the other folks are not doing. And so what and I was playing around with this idea, do we do a for-profit, do we do a non-profit? And so we chose to go to the for-profit way. And so I created the Bring the Funk fan club because here's the other thing that's important. And I traveled this country. And I was at the rally today, and there was so many people stopping. Oh my God, I missed your show. When are you coming back? You come back to TV One. So when the moment somebody tells me you come back to TV One, what it tells me is they're paying for cable. Okay, and so I said, look, We have to fund our own freedom. We have to decide what it is we actually want to pay for. And so we created the fan club for folks to also support this, because the reality is all of this stuff actually costs money, real money. Paying salaries, real money. Paying folks to be able to get here in cars, real money. And so we created this, and so we've had a lot of folks giving thus far. The goal is very simple. I want 20,000 people over the next year, hopefully shorter than a year, to give an average of $50 each. Some people have given $500. Some folks have given $50. And so what we're going to do every day is we're going to read off names of folks who've joined our fan club. So let's go ahead and roll that. Shout out to 3B Resources Group Public Relations, A&L International Group of Company LLC, Ada Brooks, A. Hubert Productions, Ainsley Reynolds, Aisha Cephas LLC, Alan Dunkley, Atlantis Martin Lee, Albert Watkins, Alfonso Thomas, Allen Ventures, Allie Parks, Alonzo Slade, Altamise Akiva, Alvin Harris, Amanda Rice, Anastasia Lee, Andrea Dansby, Andrea Franklin, Andrea Watson, lots of Andreas there, Angela Golightly, Angela Jackson Allen, Angela Lasky, Angela Porter, Angela Scipio, Angela Whitaker, Anita Harmon, Anita V. Wellens, Anita Washington, Annette Robertson, Anthony Bookman, Anthony Dukes, Anthony Merritt, Anthony Montgomery, Anthony Quinn, Anthony Robertson, Anton Gunn, my man out of South Carolina, Antonio Bailey, Antori Robbie, April Bowen, Ashley Diggs, Audrey Justice, Ava Jourdain, Aya Inelli International, Barbara Smith, Baron Banks, Barry Parker, Ben Davis, Benjamin Bundy, Bernard Norman, Beverly Kennedy, Beverly Plumber, Beverly Williams, Busy Bee Enterprises LLC, Blessed Hands Consulting LLC, Blessings for You 2262, Bobby Shine, Bosede Olegon, Brandon Stanford, Brenda Williams, Brenda Smalls, Brett Lewis, Brian Lang, Brian Morse, Brian Moss, Bridget Hill, Bruce Finklia, Brian Mitchell, Brian Price, that's Brian Mitchell, yeah, my man with former Redskins, Bert Gaddis, Bird's Eye View Solutions, Inc., Candinho Gomes. And so last list here, Karis Lawrence, Carlos Mayorga, Carmelita Cavanis, Carmen Williams, Carol Watkins Barnes, Carol Harvey, Carolyn Mickle, Cassandra Kelly, Cecilia Dorsey, Cecilia Winters Morris, Celeste Washington, Charles Patton, Charmaine Garrison, Shanae White, Cheryl Moore, Cheryl Sanford Gibbs, and Cheryl Smith. And so I'll read more names every single day. You can go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Any contribution you want to make, it's going to be for a year. Our goal, of course, is to be here more than 1 year. But this is about being independent, being black-owned, being black-controlled, being able to control our own destiny, owning our own narrative. And so go to the site, give today, blow my phone up, make it happen. Don't forget, we also restream this show. We're live at 6 p.m. If you miss any part, the moment we click in, you can go back and watch the show on VOD, on Facebook, on Periscope, as well as on YouTube. Then we'll restream the show at 10 p.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Eastern, and 10 a.m. Eastern. We also have an audio podcast and a video podcast. Go to the Google Play Store and go to iTunes as well. And the last thing, I want to thank our guests again, Rashad. I want to thank Tiffany. I want to thank Eugene for being here. Great show. All the other guests we had as well. We were supposed to have Omarosa on the show today. She's going to be on the show tomorrow, so we'll have that. And before I got on the air, guess who accepted my invitation to debate? Jason Whitlock. Oh yeah. Oh y'all, just letting y'all know. Y'all might want to get some snacks for that one. And so we got some great stuff planned. I'll see you guys tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Ha!
Yeah. He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's